works, because I got randomly selected 3 times. I haven't shaved in 2 weeks. There's like a formula. If I shave, I don't get pulled over. If I do, you know, like I come in like wearing, this t-shirt actually kind of fits me, but normally I was a fat child, I had 1 eyebrow, so now I wear t-shirts 3 sizes too small for me. And if I do that and I go all like Jersey Shore, they're like, hey, go through. But I'm more like Snooki, so that's weird. This is called, what is this poem called? Iraq. And that'll do new pieces. Iraq has a $79 billion surplus. We've spent more than $1 trillion on this war. More than 4,000 of our troops have died. God knows how many are coming back limbless. Others with post-traumatic stress disorder. This is not making us safer. This is not within our interests. This is what he says to me. An Arab American, an American Arab, an American who happens to be Arab. I look back at him. I'm not some mainstream CNN producer, and 3 Iraqis have died since our conversation started. I'm not an American. I'm a human being. I don't write poems about Kevlar vests or USO tours. And don't get me wrong, I support the troops. The ones in Iraq, Palestine, Afghanistan, Northern Ireland, South Africa, and Birmingham. And not all their bullets fit in guns. They've written poetry and music and literature an oppressor could never dream of. I do. I feel bad that I can't afford my new iPhone, but I've yet to hear you utter that more than 1 million Iraqis have been slaughtered in this war, that their $79 billion surplus can't get them electricity or stability, that the surge has failed. Baghdad has been cleansed of Sunnis, and more than 5 million have been made refugees. I'm sorry that you can't afford your cross-country road trip because gas costs too much money, and the US dollar can't get you past Go and Monopoly. We wrap ourselves around 50 stars and lapel pins while civilians in occupied nations die because of our policy. If that makes me anti-American, hood me, rip me from my home, and waterboard me in a Guantanamo prison, I'm not looking for the American dream or your silly notion of exceptionalism. You think because you love a country, it excuses jingoism. Your so-called rights and interests matter more than the countless deaths of others. And you know what? I'm not going to call you a sellout or Arab Uncle Tom. I'm going to call you what you are, a shitty human being, one that chides the right, invokes civil movements, all while taking a step backwards. Yes, Iraq has cost us $1 trillion, but there's no currency to replace your thirst for hegemony. I'm not an American. I'm a human being. If that's so hard for you to stomach, maybe you should grab a plane ticket with your frequent flyer miles and move the hell out of my country. Take that, Crawford. You ever hear that? Like, you don't like to hear it, maybe you should go back to where you come from. Really? You don't look indigenous to Kentucky? Netherlands, UTA? Get off me, son. You know, oh, 1848, never heard of that yet? You sold half the country. How do you like them apples? Don't get me wrong, we're all messed up in the north too. We think we're all liberal and not racist. I was like, you just beat a black guy. It's like, but we're in the north, we're not racist. I'm like, okay. It's a little weird. And then in Canada, they're like, Canadians look down on Americans. They're like, and we're like super lefty. And I was like, yeah, what'd you do to the native population? Weirdos. So anyway, continue to do. I don't like any oppression. That's some like messed up stuff, right? And I think that's what's so funny in the Middle East is before Egypt and Tunisia fell, and before people in Bahrain and Libya and Morocco, are they still rising up? Like everywhere, there's a swell throughout the Middle East. And there was a hater in the audience. They're like, hey, you left down my country. There's 22 of us, you know, you get tired. But what's so beautiful about what's going on is that no oppression is okay. Not kind of oppress me, kind of punch me in the face. You're like, oh, it's just an open-handed slap. It's wrong. You know what I mean? Like, for so long, we're like, well, Mubarak is bad, but what's the alternative? Assad is bad, but what's the alternative? You know, he's better than his father. I was like, yeah, he's slaughtering people in the street now. So for the issue of Palestine, we've always been sidelined. We've always been put to the side. It's, you know, well, they did the same thing in South Africa. Well, look at other situations in Africa. It's not so bad there, you know. And that doesn't really fly, because when you looked at the civil rights movement, you could point to other situations throughout the world and say, well, other people are worse off. Well, it doesn't make my fight against oppression any less important. So, yeah, what's the next poem I'm going to do? I don't know. Oh. I'm gonna read this poem, and then one or two off the page, and then when anybody starts yawning or looking at their BlackBerry, I will get the hell out of here. Oh, let's do a sad one. So, my grandmother was, she was a bit sick, and my book, one of the recurring themes in the book is Jaffa. My mother's side's from Jaffa. The first memory I have of Palestine is Yafa through my grandmother. And so she wasn't in a proper condition to read it before she passed away. And the book is dedicated to her. And there's actually 48 three-line poems for Palestine in the book, split up into 4 parts, each to signify one of my displaced grandparents in 1948. And you know, as part of the youth generation, it's important to document our stories. It's important to not just carry on the legacy, but really carry out the action, because you know, I love my immigrants, but it's really hard for a lot of our parents. It's hard for people that are refugees from 48 or went through the civil war in Lebanon or grew up in camps and don't speak the language firsthand. And there's so much trauma that exists within our community, and if we don't carry on here, and if we don't work on our campuses and in our communities, it's not going to happen. It's literally like that, you know. So this is called Yafa. It's for my Teta Leonie. She no longer recognizes my face, never will again, but can still smell her oranges, feel the sun kiss her face as if on her balcony in Yafa, 61 years later. Described like the most magnificent villa, must have been 7 stories tall, spanned half the neighborhood, tree branches opened like arms, so trunks could witness its beauty. I visited the house with my brother. Israeli cab driver said he'd never heard of the street. Palestinian presence must have made his memory fail. My grandmother was a painter, mostly landscapes. Now she can only describe them. Words like poetry, thoughts like scholars. No matter how much I read and write, I always feel like a student in the presence of refugees. My grandmother's stories came back like Haifa's waves. The outside world may never mention their names, but the roots of olive trees will never forget what happened. And just to read a few from the book, I'll just read like 3 of the 3-line poems. And raise your hand if you're Lebanese. Okay, you ever, yeah? Well, yeah. Anybody see the iconic images in 2006 with the little Israeli girls writing on missiles saying "with love" that were then used against the civilian population of Lebanon? So this is one. Missiles said, "with love." I fall to where they hit. Charred limbs, stained tears, rotting corpses. No love in sight. Her tiny legs dangled over her father's open arms like spaghetti strings, running blindly over rubble to anywhere but here. One bullet in the stomach, the other still lodged in her chest. She closes her eyes, smells the sea salt, caresses the soft sand, takes in a deep breath, and feels the wind hug her arms as her father once did. For a split second, she imagines they've returned, where she was born, where she belongs. If anybody wants to throw up like a 5-minute signal whenever, or like a last poem, you guys can do that. If not, I shall go on. It's funny, like I shall go on, it's like Celine Dion. Oh my God, Jordan cab driver, you need to settle down on the singing. I don't know what's up with Arabs and Celine Dion. They unhealthily love her. Like really, Canadians don't even like her. Anybody have pragmatic friends? Pragmatic friends, like friends that are pragmatic. We gotta be realists. No, they're annoying. Okay, I do. I used to. They don't call me back anymore. So anyway, this is called A Letter. And this is a collection of sorts responding to people who, you know, like you have to understand, like when I first started learning about Palestine, I told you I was that worthless kid that used to drink Coca-Cola and McDonald's and be like, oh, you know, maybe the Republican Party isn't so bad. I apologize, Republicans. No, I don't. You're just like the uncle I have. He's married and he's Italian. I had like a lot of friends, and I learned Palestine through the two-state solution. I was like, Thomas Friedman said Palestine. Maybe he's pro-Palestinian. No, it didn't work out that way, did it? So this is a letter responding to all my friends who said, we have to be pragmatic. You gotta not be a dummy. It's rude to call somebody a dummy. It's just ad hominem. But if you back it up with stuff, then I think it's okay. That's what I tell myself. I'm writing you this letter to tell you that I can't talk to you anymore. Not in the way you want me to. We used to be partners in thought, hands outstretched, drinks thrown back, 2 peas in a pragmatic pot. If only others could see the way we did. But now your face contracts in grimaces, words you can't bear to hear, too harsh for your parents, too normal for mine. I sounded like a bitter refugee, pined on Jaffa, emotions of my grandmother, talk of return and immediate action. I crushed our dreams with rocks of reality, a wounded dove who could no longer swallow hypotheticals when teardrops flooded Gaza like tsunamis. I read so much Chomsky, I didn't want to return. Re-examine my identity after Said's The Question of Palestine. Finally recognized that I need to read a book to be a humanist. Desmond Tutu, Cesar Chavez, Rosa Parks showed me the right of return through action. When I spoke of boycott, you dangled anti-Semitism over my head like blackmail. And how could I shut my art off to dialogue when I created art to start dialogue? But Zinn told me you can't be neutral on a moving train. MLK professed freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressor. It must be demanded by the oppressed. And Adrian Rich burned into my memory. The Moment of Change is the only poem. When I said we needed to act, you told me to write more poetry. When I said I wanted my poetry to bring action, you told me my poetry was action. But I come from a family of privilege, a sector of society that never puts its hand out and writes policy for the have-nots. I tried to win hearts and minds, but found that the keys to their hearts were in their hands, opening doors to houses they still carry deeds for in Jaffa. I'm writing you this letter to tell you that I can't talk to you anymore. But if one day you want to meet again as equals, I'd be more than happy to show you why old men devastate backs and break bones to harvest their own lands. A Mediterranean sunset so magnificent, not even a settler's highest hilltop could imagine its beauty. I can show you perfection and bruised knees, the soft side of calloused palms. I can't show it to you in the way that you want me to. I can only show it to you in the way that it exists. What'd you say? You want to hear an angry poem? Okay. So I'm going to do a couple more, and then maybe I'll throw in a funny one because it's about Texas. Yeah, weird. Not really about Texas, just you Tea Party fanatics. Like seriously, oh, where's your birth certificate? I heard they buried it with Bin Laden. Why don't you show up? So, anybody ever hear if the Palestinian people could only be more like Gandhi and Martin Luther King? Aren't they just so stupid? So here's what happens. I'm not a comedian, I'm not an actor. Actors, it's like, I'm going to lose 60 pounds, I'm going to go and train for a year, I'm going to go be a boxer, then I'm going to win an Oscar. Me, that's not really how it happens. You say something